Morocco is mourning the death of over 2,500 people. The search for survivors continues almost 3 days after a 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck near Marrakech. As families are urgently burying the dead in line with Muslim tradition, some are ending up in mass graves because of the sheer scale of this disaster. Here at France 24, Clémence Waller with this.
In the village of Imientala in the Al Haouz province, a Spanish rescue team has been deployed to look for survivors. With their dogs, they search the rubble for signs of life. The remote mountain village has been destroyed by Friday's 6.8 magnitude earthquake, and aid has been slow to reach the area.
We're in
the town of Imientala. It's very remote, and it took us about 8 hours to get here. There were no rescue groups, and we arrived with the police. The destruction is total. All the buildings have collapsed. We will begin our search using dogs and try to find survivors.
For the hardest hit provinces, Al Haouz and Taroudant, which are close to the epicenter of the quake, the devastation has been absolute. The two provinces are characterized by having a large number of mountain villages where help is more than difficult to reach. On Monday, a military helicopter dropped government relief items for people who were isolated in Igil. In Amizmiz, after burying their dead, the survivors continue to search for the living and begin to receive supplies from the National Civil Protection Service. With most shops damaged or closed, residents have struggled to find food and supplies. The army, mobilized to help the rescue effort, set up a camp with tents for the homeless who spent their third night outdoors. Meanwhile, Moroccans have mobilized to help doctors and the wounded. In localities and cities across the country, citizens organized blood drives to help refill the depleted blood banks. Among the donors were members of Morocco's national football team. Other volunteers organized food and essential goods to help quake victims after complaints that authorities were too slow to respond.
And of course, we'll have more on all aspects of that report in the coming hour here live from Paris. Let's first, though, go to our reporter, Luke Schrager. He joins us live from Marrakech. Luke, good evening to you. What's the latest you can tell us about the situation where you are?
As you were hearing at the end of that report, you've just heard there the local authorities acting. Well, here in Marrakech, we're in the city's first shelter that's being put up by authorities at a local sports centre in Marrakech's Medina, the first shelter to go up and take in people from the old city who have lost their homes. If I stand aside, you can just see mattresses that have been put out. You can see everything's on AstroTurf behind us. A lot of children and women in this construction. A similar one just over the other side of the football field, in fact, is currently going up. There's construction been going on for the last few hours. That one is going to be for the men. Now, in a total, they can handle about 750 people here, and there are 2 more sites due. There are medical staff on hand. There are 3 doctors. People can come here and they can get showered, they can be fed, and they'll be able to sleep. However, there are questions still being asked. You see, a lot of people, while the initial fear from Friday's earthquake is ultimately beginning to die down, there is at least the shock of the event itself. There is certainly still an undercurrent of fear, one that was exacerbated by the aftershocks, the feeling that there may still be buildings being brought down, because as it is, those buildings in Marrakech's old town and the old quarter, they are much weaker. It's why you see so many people around me. Even if there are just cracks, they haven't been brought down completely. Any further aftershocks could bring them down entirely. This question of whether they are in fact habitable. A lot of people here have been talking to us today. All have universally mentioned their houses. One woman was at work on the Friday night. She came home to find enormous cracks across the facades. It was not safe for her to go in. Other people came home. They said that they have lost everything, that the entire house has collapsed. They weren't even able to get hold of any of their belongings. Now, finally, after sleeping outside 2, even 3 nights, they were able to come to places like this, and you can see they'll be staying here at least in the immediate future. But the question for them is that what's going to happen next? They're grateful for the fact that they feel, at least in the short term, safe and they have somewhere to go. But you can see children over here, you can see families. The question that they have for us is what's going to happen to them? Their houses are no longer habitable. They're not able to stay there. The question is, how long is it going to be before any surveys can be made that people may be able to return home, or are they going to have to be condemned? They really need to know now what's going to be happening in the medium and long term.
Indeed, Luke, and as you're speaking, behind you we can see young children. We can hear that they're playing quite joyfully at the moment, probably not aware of the scale of what they've actually come through. Many of them perhaps lucky to be alive. In terms of what happens next, clearly there is an aid effort which is ongoing. Is the aid getting through? Are all the people who need it getting the aid that they need?
You have seen an enormous amount of solidarity, at least here in Marrakech, where we've been since we arrived. You've seen a lot of the city's people have turned out and trying to help. You've seen blood drives and donations, people turning out in their thousands. Morocco obviously has a deep tradition of hospitality and a sense of duty to its fellow people. They want to do as much as they possibly can, but there are again questions further away in the more remote zones. Marrakech is 72 kilometers to the north of the epicenter. Down south, the entire area that was so much more badly affected. We're talking about an area the size of Switzerland. It's an absolutely vast area that where rescuers need to get moving. There are questions as to why things haven't been moving more quickly. Why, after so many offers of aid that have been made from abroad, is Morocco only currently working with 4 countries, Spain, the UK, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, along with smaller groups of volunteers on their own who have trickled into the country and are helping out where they can. Now, according to Morocco's Interior Ministry, that's a matter of a lack of coordination that has been going into effect. So there may be issues with a bottleneck there. They have said it would be counterproductive for everyone to be showing up at once. But I think what we can expect to see, certainly according to state TV here, is that Morocco is likely to start accepting other offers of help as well in the days ahead.
Luke Schrager at that makeshift shelter in Marrakech. Thank you very much for that update, sir. We'll be speaking again very shortly. Luke Schrager, our correspondent there in Marrakech. Let's get more on the earthquake and its aftermath. Joining us now from Marrakech, Hassan Ajaj, who's a Moroccan-British photographer and designer. Hassan, thank you very much for being with us. Can you give us a sense of what is happening where you are, what you're seeing, what kind of things that you've witnessed?
Hi first. I'm still in it, so it's a little bit dazed and confused like everybody else. So obviously this happened Friday evening. And it was, I think Friday evening was such a shock that everybody, when we came out in the street, we was told to stay outside for safety. It was, I think, just about surviving because everybody was expecting the second or the third would come because we had two of them happening. So obviously everybody was trying to make sense of what was going on and, the shock of it. But I think me personally, I didn't realise until really Saturday morning when I went to, because when it happened to me, I was staying in the new town in Gillies, and then I went back to check my Riyadh in the Medina Wednesday morning, and as I arrived to the Medina, then I realised the disaster of it. Really, I was so shocked and just heartbreaking that I even forgot to go and see my place. Then throughout that day, we were starting to get calls, and obviously the news was coming up and seeing what happened actually in the countryside. Because the news was coming every minute and stuff like that. So Saturday was almost like just working out what happened to the rest of the country. And it's been, I'd say, it's a shock, a bit confusing for everybody. Even myself, as I say, I'm talking to you and I feel like I don't even know what I'm saying at the end of the day. But yesterday I spent the day in the Medina trying to see some friends and, just walking around and situations, and now I realise how bad it is because though we've seen images of the houses, for example, I'm going to talk about the Medina because that's where I'm at, and I know the countryside is hit more and other cities as well. But in the Medina, we've seen a lot of walls and houses collapse that you can see visually from outside, but I didn't realise the actual dangerous part of the Medina is all the cracks that's happening inside the riads that you obviously don't see from outside. And there's a lot of these, there's a lot of riads, a lot of cracks that almost too dangerous to live in. And this has created, obviously, people being shocked, a bit scared, a bit unsafe, about taking the street to sleep. The great thing I would say in this to see the help that everybody is trying to help. You just cannot not do anything. It's just trying to find a way of helping. Obviously, we got caught with this situation, and it's hard to plan for something like this. So this is why I think the whole country at the moment is trying to work out, make sense, obviously every day there's more news of new things happening and trying to adjust it. So it's a very, very difficult moment. Me personally, I'm trying to see how I can help, trying to find the right charities, because all of a sudden there's a lot of people setting up charities, making sure, obviously, this time of this situation, sometimes you get a lot of people trying to profit from this. They just try and make sure the money and the help gets sent to the right people. This is my situation at the moment. It really is something that I think I'm still not digested the whole scenario.
Hassan, first of all, can I just reassure you that you've actually painted a really vivid and detailed picture of what is going on. Your report to us there is making so much sense, and it's actually very detailed. So thank you very much for that. Do not worry about how you're expressing yourself. I understand, and it sounds like you are under shock. And that is understandable, the situation. As you're talking, we're showing images of the destruction around you where you are right now. In terms of what has happened, and I know this is not a question for you, it's probably a question for someone who's going to be involved in the reconstruction and the rebuilding of the area, but do you see that there could be a kind of reconstruction that could begin, or do you think there is actually too much damage to be done? It might be a question of starting again totally from scratch.
Well, I think it's probably have to happen in stages. They'll probably have to see, because at the moment, after this shock, it's almost like headless chicken for a minute, because you're dealing with people, deaths, food, water, electricity, and on and on. So I think there's probably going to be a thing where, from Saturday, for example, I went there when everything's fallen, and then I went yesterday. I was in the Medina yesterday. You could see people already sweeping up stuff and trying to make clear the space. But there's obviously got to be stages where the place that's really unsafe has to be noticeable and put something around it so people know this is unsafe. The building, obviously, saving people is more important. You can always build something. You're always going to find a solution. That would have to become probably in different, different stages. So at the moment, it's just making sense of what's happened, what's going on, what's unsafe. And also people just trying to get organised in a different way, from building, from people, from food, from shelters, delivery. So at the moment, I just heard some friends of mine who were trying to go to help in the countryside, because so many people are trying to go to help in the countryside. It created a traffic jam because there's so many all of a sudden people helping. So I think hopefully, knowing myself and the Moroccan people, hopefully this will make it even stronger. It's just beautiful to see everybody's finding a way trying to help. And any help is welcome, even if it's a millimetre.
Hassan, as you're speaking, we're showing images of, for instance, people giving blood, of people making an effort to help. Yeah. And people who visit Morocco and know Moroccans talk about their kindness and their big-heartedness and how they welcome people to their families and to their country when they visit. How is that helping, do you think, right now? Clearly, from what you're saying, it sounds like there's a great deal of solidarity with people trying to help one another. Clearly, what we're seeing here is over 2,500 people who've been killed, many, many more who have been injured, and a lot of devastation.
Because obviously this is totally still going on, and all the results coming at every second, different results. As I say, I think it's just getting that rhythm of everybody connecting more and, together. So I'd say even from yesterday to today, there's a lot more charities, a lot more people coming from abroad. On Saturday, I spent probably from 9 a.m. till 10 in the evening just on calls and messages, and also the amount of people asking, how can we help, how can we help? So this is really, there's that there. And as I say, just to see, I'm talking about personal thing being here, just to see had people really trying to help in every manner, and has connected people. I would say because it's a disaster, it's really put people together, and obviously, the government trying to do down there and trying to get a rhythm going and helpful. But there was this help from the public that's really making it special. But there's a lot to do, and there's going to be a lot of sadness and shocks and stuff like that. And from mental health to people adjusting, people sleeping out in the street, and something like this is. And I know there's some people having a go at certain things, but it is where it is in the sense of we know we could do better, but it's that shock element and not being prepared for it. That you can never prepare for something like this, even if you actually prepare something for it, because it's Mother Nature that's just taking a 360 degrees circle.
Hassan, thank you very much indeed. My heart goes out to you, and thank you so much for giving us that really detailed take on what is going on and telling us what you've seen and what you're going through. And I know that the people around you will benefit from your attitude and your help. You're clearly doing a great job helping people there. Thank you so very much indeed for joining us here on France 24.
All can I ask is any help for Morocco, please do. Yeah, that's all I can ask.
Hassan, your words have gone out on air. Thank you very much indeed for being with us here on France 24. We appreciate your time. Take good care of yourself and everybody around you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Hassan Hajjaz here, Moroccan and British photographer and designer who is in Marrakech, and of course telling us of what he went through as the earth was moving, and then the sense of all the damage around him and the loss of life as well. Of course, he's seen it all, and he's been telling us about how people are feeling right now. And one can understand that there is a great sense of shock, and you could hear that in his voice, couldn't you, very, very clearly. Morocco then has so far declined aid and assistance from France. The French foreign minister is avoiding a row over this issue. Catherine Colonna says that Morocco is a sovereign state and able to decide what it needs. 4 countries have rescue staff on the spot: Spain, Qatar, Britain and the United Arab Emirates. That's
Spanish military unit 8 hours to navigate the damaged roads leading to the remote village of Imintala, devastated by Friday's earthquake.
There were no rescue groups and we arrived with the police. The destruction is absolute. All the buildings have collapsed. We will begin our search using dogs and try to find survivors.
Meanwhile, more help set off from the UK and Qatar. Some 60 other countries have offered assistance, including the US, Israel, Turkey, Algeria and France. But Morocco accepted offers from 4 foreign nations only: Spain, Britain, Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. It said a lack of coordination could be counterproductive and that other offers could be accepted if the needs evolve. On Sunday, the head of a French rescue charity, Secouristes Sans Frontières, said Moroccan authorities were preventing its teams from entering the country. France's Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna on Monday said debate over Morocco's foreign aid choices was inappropriate.
This is a misplaced controversy. Morocco is a sovereign state, and it's up to them to decide what their needs are.
Though French authorities sought to get help to the country by other means, as Colonna announced the release of €5 million to help NGOs already on the ground. Paris and Rabat have had a rocky relationship in recent years. The country has not had an envoy in Paris since January.
Let's get more analysis of the situation, joined by May Al-Sayag, who's the Middle East and North Africa Head of Communications for International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, the IFRC, joining us live from Lebanon. Thank you for being with us. From your perspective, how's the operation developing in Morocco?
Good evening. Thank you for hosting us. Today, the IFRC has categorized the crisis in Morocco as red level. So the situation is very critical, as you know, and we have seen from your reports on the ground that it's a mountainous area and it's hard to reach area, so it's hard to rescue people as fast as possible. In the meantime, the Moroccan Red Crescent teams are supporting the public authorities in search and rescue efforts, in providing first aid, in providing shelter and water, and also blood donation. So the needs are huge. And I also second what one of you, the photographer Hassan from Morocco, who said that any help and any assistance is highly needed because the magnitude and the scale of the earthquake in Morocco is very big, and no one country can respond to a crisis with such a magnitude. So all international assistance is needed, and we as a federation, as International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, are providing assistance, and we now has appointed an emergency response coordinator to be able to mobilize our resources and the resources of the national societies of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent from all over the world. So as we see now, we have Spain, we have Qatar, we have United Arab Emirates, and a lot of national societies are expressed their readiness to support the Moroccan Red Crescent in their response.
Do you feel, May, and I'm not with this question seeking to criticise the Moroccan authorities because they decide what they decide because of how they see things on the ground, but looking at it from a distance as I am, and perhaps as you are, do you think perhaps Morocco might or would be advised to change its opinion about accepting more help?
Yeah, based on our previous experiences, as you know, that we are an organization dealing with crises and disasters all over the world. What we have witnessed in Syria and Turkey, it gives us an overview that the magnitude, when we have a crisis with this magnitude, one country alone cannot respond to these huge needs. So we are ready as the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. We are on standby, and any help, I believe it's needed. We are in a race of time. The rescue, and as you know, that 27 hours maximum is the window to be able to rescue and help survivors. As we move fastly and in a timely manner, it would be better for to have more survivors and to be able to respond to the urgent needs. We can understand that this is a sovereign decision, but of course the Moroccan authorities will be able, maybe they don't want to bombard themselves with a lot of aid and support at the same time, so they are moving slowly to process the situation on the ground and see what are the needs. And already from our federation, from our movement, the Red Crescent teams has been deployed there, and they are supporting the Moroccan Red Crescent. And also there is a flight of 3 planes loaded with the relief items from the Canadian Red Cross and from ECHO, from the European Union, is heading to Morocco. So, but I think it takes time to assess more the needs on the ground and to see what are the main priorities. So far, they are identified shelter, food, and blood donation. Blood is highly needed. And also we have the disruption in the water facilities and health facilities, which needs a lot of support to be able to respond to these needs.
May, is there any sense that your people can get to those victims who've yet to have any kind of help? We understand that in many parts of the area affected, it's isolated, the terrain is difficult, mountains, that kind of thing. Is there any sense from your people on the ground that these people are getting the help they need?
Yes, in general, we work through the national societies. And in the case of Morocco, it's the Moroccan Red Crescent. If you can see, they have been there. We have seen a lot. We received a lot of photos and information about their involvement on the ground. They have been responding from the very first hours. They have assisted the public authorities in rescue and search efforts, also in providing food and first aid. And luckily, most of the volunteers who are we have like 8,000 volunteers from the Moroccan Red Crescent. They are there and they are donating blood. They are providing first aid services and medical services to the injured people. So, but as I mentioned before, the magnitude of this crisis is so big, So because of this, the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies is mobilizing all national societies from all over the world. We see that the Netherlands Red Cross, the British Red Cross, the Canadian, all national, also from the MENA region, from Africa region, they understand the magnitude of the crisis and they are ready to support.
In terms of how that support will be going forward, in terms of how it will be delivered, surely, do you need more people there, more hands, more feet on the ground to actually move this around? Is that what you need?
Yes, definitely. We as a federation, we have an emergency. We are mobilizing our personnel. We have an emergency response, and we are deploying more teams in terms of operations manager, in terms of medical units, in terms of communication, so to be able to see and help the Moroccan Red Crescent in assessing the needs and responding to them in a timely and coordinating manner. Our role is to coordinate this, humanitarian assistance. So to be able to respond to the needs and know what are exactly the needs on the ground and to advocate for it at international level and respond to them.
May Al-Sayeg, thank you very much for sharing your assessment of the situation with us. It is a massive operation. Your people on the ground doing a fantastic job already in the most difficult of circumstances. May Al-Sayeg of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, thank you very much for joining us live there from Lebanon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for you.
You're welcome. Thank you. We continue to keep you across all developments on the situation in Morocco. Short break now. We're back after that.
France 24, a different point of view.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Hip-hop is celebrating its 50th birthday. More than a musical genre, it's a cultural phenomenon. We're in New York to trace its journey from 1970s The Bronx to becoming a billion-dollar art form. Join us for our three-part series on the history, the women, and the fashion of hip-hop.
Encore, presented by Eve Jackson on France 24 and France24.com.
You're watching France 24 live from Paris. I'm Mark Owen. These are the headlines. Morocco mourns over 2,500 dead as the rescue and recovery continues near Marrakech. The 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck on Friday. The race to find survivors under the rubble of their homes becomes more and more urgent. Some areas in the Atlas Mountains have still not yet been reached. My correspondent Luke Schrago is standing by in Marrakech with the latest. International aid and assistance is there. France has offered help, but Morocco's only accepted 4 countries: Spain, Qatar, Britain and the UAE. Nonetheless, there are angry people sleeping rough and others who've had no help yet. And from the medinas to the mountains, Morocco's tourist sector is set to suffer losses in the wake of this earthquake. For instance, 4,000 French people alone visit Morocco each year. And obviously there's countless numbers from international destinations who flock to Morocco for the remarkable scenery, beaches, buildings, and the warmth and generosity of the people. Thank you for being with us. We start with the latest on the earthquake in Morocco. The country mourning the death of over 2,500 people. The search for survivors continues almost 3 days after a 6.8 magnitude earthquake struck near Marrakech. As families are urgently burying the dead in line with Muslim tradition, some are ending up in mass graves because of the sheer scale of this disaster. The images really telling the story. Luke Schrager is our correspondent in Marrakech. He joins us now live. Luke, tell us where you are. Tell us what you can see.
Well, right here, we're at Marrakech's first temporary shelter that's been aimed at those in need, those who've lost their houses. It's based in the city's Medina, the world-famous UNESCO heritage site, and indeed the old town itself, which has been so badly affected. Certainly not as badly as elsewhere, down further to the south near the epicenter, but badly enough. You see, a lot of the old town's buildings are made of extremely old forms of construction. They're very, very old, and they're just not really designed to stand up to the kind of stress that an earthquake would put on them. So a lot of the things that we saw when we arrived in the city, you've seen like the facades coming away from walls and buildings, revealing the masonry and stonework underneath. Other buildings have collapsed entirely, like one of the minarets on the city's famed Jamal Fna Square. In the old town in the Medina itself, quite a lot of homes have been lost. Others are simply no longer safe for habitation, and that's led to what we can see around me. If I step aside, you'll be able to see a lot of people here. We came down earlier in the day. There weren't very many people here, and things were really just being set up. What we're seeing now is more people have been coming here over the day. This place is designed for them, at least in the short term, for them to have somewhere to sleep that isn't in the streets. We've seen a lot of people sleeping outside because they've lost their homes, or their homes are no longer deemed fit for habitation. They're unsafe, and they have nowhere else to go. So here, at least, they can come and be fed. They can come and wash, have a shower, look after their families. But again, what we're seeing is a certain undercurrent of fear, more moving on from the potential for further damage from aftershocks or even another earthquake, perhaps. No, what we're fearing now is what's going to happen to these people in the medium and long term. They've been speaking to us today. All of them have lost their houses or can no longer return home, and they've been wondering what's going to happen. They're grateful for what authorities have done here, and indeed we're expecting what we've been hearing, that another two sites in and around Marrakech are being prepared just like this one. There's the construction you can see over my head. It's a sort of tent-like construction with tarpaulin sides. There's another one, we're on a sports field in the old Medina, just over the other side of the football field. There's another one currently being constructed as we speak. That one will be for the men, and when that one is complete, 750 people will have a place to go. But a lot of people have been saying, again, this is just in the short term. They don't know what they're going to do. They don't know what's going to happen next. 40 municipalities have already seen all schools shut down. They've got kids to look after. You can see these kids running around. For them, yes, they probably have very little idea what's happening. They're very young kids, and certainly taking advantage of the fact we're on an AstroTurf football pitch. But their families, their parents, their mothers, their fathers, they are worried about what's going to happen, and they have very little clarity about what will be happening moving forward.
Luke Schrager in Marrakech, thank you very much indeed for bringing us up to date with what's happening exactly where you are. We'll hear more from Luke later in the programme. Marrakech then has an ancient Jewish quarter, one of the oldest in the world. The damage done to homes there, as Luke was saying, has left many families fearing a return.
The streets of Mela are strewn with rubble, as are the homes within. This is the former Jewish quarter of Marrakech. Fatima's house has not been spared. She can hardly get inside.
I want to pick up some papers and some clothes, and I'm waiting for the inspectors to come. Look at the state of this house. And this is all I've got to wear. No one came to help me clear this all away. It's a good thing my son wasn't here. Otherwise, he would have been trapped.
On the night of the earthquake, Hayat was at home.
The table and cutlery started moving and falling. I fell too. Then I heard screams. I tried to get out, but my door was blocked, and I couldn't open it. There were people outside who helped me, and I was able to get out.
Their homes are no longer safe to live in, as is the case for many in the neighbourhood. It's one of the poorest areas in Marrakech and one of the worst affected by the earthquake. Experts have begun carrying out inspections.
Our role is to observe the earthquake damage in the old town and assess the state of housing there. We need to identify buildings at risk of collapsing and determine the degree of deterioration.
While these experts say they're doing everything they can, an enormous amount of work lies ahead in the neighbourhood and in the city. Like Hayat, many are still choosing to sleep outside in case of aftershocks.
I have 4 children, and there's my mother too. There are 6 of us at home, and now we're living outside.
You saw what's left of our house. Everything is destroyed. But if we leave here, when we get back, all the belongings we left behind will have been stolen.
So for the time being, the whole family is staying close to their damaged home, preferring not to use one of the shelters put in place in Marrakech.
Catherine Gedder-Clifford with that report. Your heart really goes out to all the people suffering there in and around Marrakech. Philip Toll, our International Affairs Editor, joins us. Philip, good evening to you. 4 countries have been allowed to send humanitarian aid, help, assistance to Morocco to help with the rescue efforts there. Rescue and recovery, it's an ongoing process, obviously. The notable exception to all of that is France, which has not been asked to help. Why is this?
Well, relations between France and Morocco are not good right now. A lot of people are saying, well, look, where does geopolitics stop and where does humanitarian aid begin? And asked this week if he was in good relations with the Moroccan king, Emmanuel Macron said, I have a friendly relationship with King Mohammed VI. When he was asked about his relationship with Emmanuel Macron, he said, our relationship is neither good nor friendly. So that just about sums up the 2 different sentences describing the relationship between France and Morocco. There are 4 reasons for this. The first one is that the Moroccans are angry about the fact that France has not backed their plan for the Western Sahara and becoming the rightful owners of the Western Sahara, if you like. They are hesitating about it. They say, well, look, this has been recognised by countries even like Israel. Why isn't France doing the same thing? That is something that Spain has done, and that's why Spain has been the first country to send in international aid to Morocco. Second point is that there is a lot of doubt over whether or not Rabat actually used this Israeli Pegasus spyware to spy on French officials, including President Emmanuel Macron. Of course, the Moroccans have denied this, but up to 50,000 numbers are suspected of being spied upon by this Pegasus spyware. So that has also put a wedge between relations between France and Morocco. Well, there's also the decision by France to reduce the number of visas for Moroccan nationals being allowed into France. And there is also another aspect of this which goes back to the Western Sahara, and that is France's relationship with Algeria, which has vastly improved in recent times. And of course, Algeria and Morocco don't have relations together. Even though Algeria has opened its airspace, those 2 countries don't get on with each other at all. So I think all of these different antagonisms between the 2 countries have led to the decision not to ask France to intervene for the moment, even though France has said it's going to send 5 million euros to help non-governmental organisations. That is not money going directly to the Moroccan authorities, but to other organisations which will be working on the ground.
Indeed. The International Red Cross just speaking to us a little bit earlier, Philip, saying the more people you can get in there to help, the better. So perhaps that's something that we should keep an eye on in terms of the developments. The other big dilemma, of course, facing the Moroccan authorities is when to stop searching for survivors. We're in that crucial phase, aren't we, of the first 24, 48 hours after the event. What's been the case in earthquakes in other places, Philip? Give us a sense of that.
You know, this is a very difficult issue, Mark, and no one knows when to say this is it, we're not going to search anymore. But there are imperatives, and There are a couple of important ones, and the first one is that some of the buildings are very unsafe, and rescue workers can keep trying to search for survivors. After about 48 hours, 72 hours or 96 hours, the chance of finding someone alive and pulling them from the rubble are much more reduced. That is also going to cause a problem of disease and further problems caused by decaying bodies, which have got to be taken away as quickly as possible. And also those buildings that are dangerous have to be demolished, which means if anybody is underneath there that is still alive, well, they're obviously not going to survive another collapse of a building on top of them. But there are people who are the members of families or those who have lost loved ones who they feel may still be alive under the rubble, who don't want the rescue effort to end anytime soon because they're still convinced that other people can be pulled from the rubble alive. The chances are that if you're young and you are not injured, you don't have broken limbs or anything like that, but you're just underneath, you may have access to an air pocket or to water, then you may be able to survive longer. But after 72 hours or so, it's beginning to be a little bit less certain that anybody will survive. And I think that is when we're going to start seeing some kind of action from the authorities to call that part of the rescue effort off and to try to secure these buildings that are vastly unsafe and maybe demolish even more.
It is a heartbreaking situation, Philip, but they are the hard facts of what will happen in the coming hours. Philip Toll, our international affairs editor there. Thank you so very much for that breakdown, what the situation is, and clearly we're looking for all developments as they happen in Morocco. Thanks again to Philip for joining us.